Welcome to the Live the Experience podcast. Hi, my name is Lenny and I'm your host. Welcome back to the show. On this episode, I'm joined by Gwen. Gwen went to the Philippines to volunteer, and she used this experience as an opportunity to discover what it really means to her to have passion and how important it is to her to have passion about the things she does. She also realized how important it is to have intent or be clear about the intent of doing things, and then try to take it back to the Netherlands. But then she also was just so overwhelmed by the huge country of the Philippines and Manila, and at first struggled a bit to get used to that. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you can take something out of it, and let's talk after the episode. Welcome to the show, Gwen. I'm very, very happy to have you on today.
Hey, Lenny. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Let's get right into it and let's talk about your experience. What do you think is important to know about going on a global volunteer experience?
So I think the most important thing to know about the global volunteer experience is that it will be the most fun time of your life at some point, and it will also be really, really hard, and it will definitely never be perfect. I think that's the main thing that I think back of if I think of my global volunteer experience, is that it was probably one of the toughest times of my life or the most challenging times of my life, but also amazing.
Now, we will get a little bit into it, what you took out of it and what was challenging and what you've learned from it. But maybe first let's talk a little bit more general about your experience. So you decided to go to the Philippines. Take us a little bit through your experience. Can you describe a little bit your emotions and feelings when you left Germany and when you arrived at the airport in Manila?
Yes, so I decided to go to the Philippines, not for any specific reason. I knew I wanted to go to Asia because the region always fascinated me. But I actually honestly picked the Philippines quite randomly because it sounded interesting, but I didn't know that much about the Philippines. And actually the time before leaving was kind of a stressful time. I had a lot going on with uni. I had to say bye to a lot of friends, to family, things like that. So apart from going to the Isaac preparation meetings, of course, I didn't spend much time researching the Philippines, if I'm honest. So actually the first time I opened my guidebook, My Lonely Planet, was when I was already sitting in the plane very nervously.
So
and that
that
was
was
actually
your,
the first
you
time.
didn't do, besides the Isaac preparation, you didn't prepare much for the experience or for
I
the stay
mean,
in the country.
I did the odd Googling, like the typical Googling. And
Mm-hmm.
if you Google the Philippines, you will probably see beautiful beaches mainly. So that's what I saw. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can go with that. That's great. But I didn't spend much time researching in depth about where exactly I would be going because I think it was also a thing of being nervous a little bit. I was kind of like, you know what, I'm just going to let it come. I'm just going to see how it goes and try to not think about it too much because then I would just get too nervous, I think.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then what was your first impression of the country once you stepped your first feet out of the airport in Manila?
Mainly I was just very tired from a long flight. I didn't get around to a lot of sleeping because I was really nervous, of course, because I realized like, oh, dang,
It's
I'm sitting in
happening.
a plane alone. I don't actually know where I'm going. Like, yeah, I have a phone number and an email address and a Skype call I've had with the people, but I don't know who's going to be waiting for me at the airport. And, usually if you fly somewhere, you have someone picking you up or something. And of course, I knew I would have someone picking you up, but I didn't know who that person would be and things like that.
There was still
Um,
some uncertainty.
yeah, there was a lot of uncertainty actually, and that was the scary thing about it. And especially if you have, when you're the feeling when the plane takes off, which is usually a very nice feeling that I love, when you're kind of like your stomach sinks a little bit. That was for me a moment where I realized like, okay, there's no going back now. Like this is
Yeah.
happening, nothing I can do about it. But yeah, when I arrived, I think my main feeling was when I stepped out of the airport actually was relief because the Isaac people were waiting for me at the airport with a nice poster, and I was like, oof, okay, I met someone, first step has gone well. And then I think I was kind of like had a bit of an adrenaline rush, was really relieved that people were there picking me up, was excited. But apart from that, like, yeah, Manila is a very big city. I don't know exactly how many million people live there, but it's a lot. So it was a crazy experience, sitting in the car, driving from the airport, having all these different impressions. Was almost a bit too much to handle.
I can imagine it was completely different to what you've experienced before, like being in the US or Europe, like visiting other cities in Europe and then going to the Philippines, to Manila. A complete different experience, wasn't it? Like everything
Yeah.
around the city.
Yeah, I mean, I studied in a very small and sweet and quiet Dutch city. So I think you can't go much more opposite to that, with
Were
Manila.
you a little bit overwhelmed?
Oh, totally, completely overwhelmed. But I think in the end, for me, that was a great feeling because I think I rarely felt more alive than in that moment where I was sitting in the car driving through the city and I was like, whoa, I'm actually here. I've taken myself so much out of my comfort zone that literally everything in my surrounding is completely different, which was really actually an exciting feeling. Kind of a bit of a like, like I never did a bungee jump, but kind of what I imagine like a bungee jump feeling afterwards, like being like, whoa, I just
Adrenaline
jumped off
rush, yeah.
of this high cliff.
Yeah. And then how did your accommodation look like in Manila?
So we were living in a volunteer house. I think, I don't know the exact number of how many people we were, but I think it was something around 20, 22 people who were all volunteering in Manila with Isaac. And we all lived in one house, but the house actually only had 2 bedrooms. So it was one girl's room, one guy room, and
Wow.
10 people per room approximately. Like we had these bunk beds. Which, I mean, every time I tell people that, they're always like, oh my God, 10 people in one room. But actually, and also if I think back of that now, it's like, whoa, that's crazy. But actually, it was a lot of fun. It was really great because you always had people around you. You had people going through the same experience as you. And I was happy to have so many people surrounding me rather than being alone in a room on my first night.
But then, yeah, take us through your first week. Was it a big thing for you to adapt, or were you right away, oh, wow, this is so nice. I don't mind at all sleeping with 10 people in one room?
Mm, I think it took me a bit to adapt, but I didn't really notice it because I was really, I think, on a really big adrenaline rush in the end, if I think back on it, because everything was so new and everything so, yeah, so different that I think your mind is constantly on like a higher state of awareness than it usually is, and you're more alert, and you really try to take everything in and process it. I think for me it was more week 2 or 3 where things started to become a bit more, like my daily life, and I started to find my rhythm there, and then you really start thinking about, okay, where am I actually, what is actually happening. But the first week I think was just pure adrenaline, getting used to everything. And luckily, a lot of people, a lot of the other volunteers had been there for a while already, so for 3 or 4 weeks, and they showed me around and they really took me in, as well as the Isaac people. So I really always had people around to ask who had been through that same process of adapting.
Yeah. And then, how was it to live together with so many cultures? Was it difficult? Did the cultures clash, or how did you manage to live together in the house? I'm asking because I know it from my own experience, just living with 6 people as a student, in a shared flat, and the amount of frustration that can be created in the kitchen with only 6 people. So,
Yeah,
how
I
was it to
mean,
live together with so many cultures who all have different ways of doing things and different cooking styles, all of this, right, in one house? How was that?
it's crazy. It's crazy. I think it's such an interesting experience because I think you always think that you're going to learn a lot about other cultures, which you do. Like, I definitely learned a lot about different cultures that I also hadn't been in touch with before. But the funny thing is that you actually always learn more about your own culture because you really become aware of how you operate. And because if you're around Europeans or Germans the whole time, then you don't realize how German you actually are or how European you actually are. But if you surround yourself with people from India, Japan, China, Russia, you really start to realize how much you actually fall into a sort of cultural pattern. And that was really interesting for me to realize that some things that I was taking as completely normal were so different in other cultures. So, for example, when it came to cooking or eating, especially like eating habits that I was really keen on, if I make a meal and I'm around people, then for me, it's normal to sit down at a table and eat together. And for other people, it was more like, no, I'm just going to eat standing really quickly, eat my food, and then go on and then sit with other people. And I was always taken aback a little bit when I was sitting down at the table. I was like, okay, who's joining me to eat? And people were really weirded
Yeah.
out when I was waiting for them to start eating and then start eating myself. Because for me, it's kind of polite to start eating together, and that's something that for other cultures is completely different because they have a different relationship to, tradition, how to eat food or how
Yeah.
to sit down for a meal.
Now, you live together with approximately 20 people.
Mm-hmm.
Nevertheless, did you had moments where you felt lonely, and did you experience moments of loneliness?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think you never really think that you can be lonely if you're around 20 people. But I think it can get very, very lonely because there were times where just what I was just saying, where I became so aware of my own cultural values or my own kind of framework in my mind of how I had to operate in a culture that, and no, I felt like no one could understand that because they were all from different places, from different backgrounds. And I felt really alone in my frustration there. So I did definitely have moments of loneliness and of homesickness for sure. But I actually realized that talking about it, even if people can't fully grasp what you mean, the people were super understanding, super open to listening. And that was actually a really great experience to open up and be vulnerable and be like, hey guys, I actually feel a bit alienated right now because right now I'm the only German and none of you can understand what this actually feels like to me, because a lot of people were from other Asian countries. So for them, the Filipino culture wasn't as different as it was for me. So there were definitely moments where you feel a bit, you feel alone in your experience. But for me, it always really helped to talk about it a lot.
Yeah. Now, let's talk a little bit about the four leadership qualities we try to develop exactly through these
Mm-hmm.
cultural exchange abroad, through our products. There are four, right? Not the first time I mentioned them on this podcast: being solution orientated, empowering others, being a world citizen, and then becoming more self aware. And I mentioned a lot before already that I really believe that you don't just develop one on such an experience, and you are never done developing those qualities in life. But if you look at the 8 weeks you spent in Indonesia, which of the four do you think
Philippines.
you've worked sorry, yes, the Philippines. Which of the four do you think you worked the most on?
Yeah, as you said, I think I definitely developed all four of them. But I would say that I became more self-aware mainly. And I think it's something that I touched upon earlier already as well. But I always really think that an experience like that really kind of forces you to really look in a mirror, metaphorically, and to really see how you as a character, as a personality, as a person from a certain background or from a certain cultural mindset, how you react in different situations and how you react in challenging situations. And that's something that I'm really thankful for my ASIAC experience, because even though it wasn't always fun while it was happening, I really learned a lot about how I act in a challenging environment
Yeah.
and how I react to certain things happening. And that has really helped me in my life since then a lot, I think. And I'm still learning that.
How did you, for example, deal with stressful situations, or have you been in situations where you discovered a new side of you and figuring out, okay, this is me, how I can deal best with stressful situations, for example?
Yeah, so for example, really stressful situation for me was always the way to work because I traveled with public transport through Manila it took a while to get to the school that I was working at, and usually I was traveling with other volunteers, but a couple of times I also went on my own, and I really realized that I am a lot. I can get really into my own head or into my own thoughts, if you can say it like that. in stressful situations, that I get caught up in this mind carousel of panicking or thinking something could happen. And that when I am in that kind of mindset, that it's really hard for me to get out of it. And I had several situations, for example, in public transport when going to the project alone, where I didn't know for a while where I was going or where I was, or where I got scared of all the people or of all these huge masses of people on public transport there, and where I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna get lost. I'm not gonna find my way back. I'm gonna be stranded in the dark somewhere. Where I really realized that I had to, mentally take a step back, breathe, and think about, okay, what can I rationally do right now to make the situation better? And I also had that in my project a couple of times, that I was I was alone or outside the classroom with a couple of students who are all going crazy and who are all running around and doing different things. And I had to kind of get them to focus or get them to go back into the classroom. And I was just completely overwhelmed. I was like, oh God, what am I going to do? And I really learned to, breathe, take a step back, think, okay, what is actually happening right now? Why am I reacting this way? Am I reacting because it's actually a difficult situation, or am I reacting this way because I'm just stressed or challenged? And isn't it a good thing that I'm challenged right now? Because this is where I'm going to learn or thrive, And I really have that also still now sometimes. Like, I'm doing an internship right now where I sometimes have to do tasks that are completely unfamiliar to me, and where I can easily, panic and freak out, or just say, oh, I'm just not going to do this at all because I find it too hard. And I've really learned to, breathe, take a step back, think about what is actually happening, and then approach things again with a fresh mind.
How did you then find the motivation to get up every day and put in the effort, take the long ride to the school through the very hectic and big city of Manila, being insecure in some situations? But how did you find the motivation to get up every single day?
I think it was also, again, something about being self-aware, because I realized in that project for the first time that I'm someone, I need to have a lot of passion for the things I do. And I've noticed that throughout my life since then. I need to feel passionate about the things I do, and I need to feel like there's a purpose or a reason for me to do a certain thing. And I really found that purpose in my project, or not necessarily only in the project, but I really realized while I was there that I was, on the one hand, very proud of myself that I had made it there. I was constantly thinking like, whoa, Gwen, look at yourself. You're on the other end of the world alone. You're doing something that you can be proud of for the rest of your life, that you actually took this step and didn't just go on a nice beach holiday with your friends. And that filled me with a lot of purpose to make the most of it and to really get everything out of that experience. And I think towards the end of the project, I really also, this everyday tram ride or like the metro ride to my workplace actually became something that I looked forward to, because I was like, whoa, this is such a crazy experience that you get to live right now. Enjoy it, and don't complain about it. It really, and also being at the school and being with these kids that I otherwise never would have met, and all these people I otherwise never would have met, just really filled me with a lot of, purpose to keep going. And I noticed that throughout my life now, that once I feel passion for something, I feel a reason for something, I really go all in for it.
Then what does it mean for you to seek discomfort in a complete new country and environment for you?
For me, it means being really honest with yourself, not trying to, sugarcoat it and think, oh, this is going to be fine. Once I get on the plane, it's going to be fine. Like, to really be honest with yourself that this is going to be a tough experience and it's not always going to be fun and easy, and to really have a strong sense for yourself why you're doing this, why you're going abroad, what you want to get out of it. So really, I wish I would have, written down more things while I was there. I think that would have also really helped me. Just reflecting on, why am I actually going abroad? Why am I actually doing these things? What do I want to learn? Things like that. I think that's really important, to really be aware of why you're putting yourself in a certain situation, why you want to seek discomfort, why you want to go out of your comfort zone. And in the end, for me, that's always to grow, to learn something about myself. I think every time I do something that's out of the ordinary for me, that's something that's out of my comfort zone, I think every time I learn at least a small thing about myself.
Yeah. And then what did you take out of your volunteering experience? Also, what did you carry back from the Philippines back to Germany and the Netherlands, regarding becoming a responsible leader? Because that's at the end our objective, right? Developing young responsible leaders.
Yes, so I would say that the main thing that I took back is really a strong belief in myself that even though I didn't change the world in those 6 weeks, and I didn't, it's not like I had a impact that will be lasting for years and years and years in that project. But what I really realized is that I, in a sense, have agency over my own life, and I am a young person. And yes, of course, I'm not in a powerful position where I'm leading a company or an organization or a country, but I have a voice and I have a life that I can live, and I can live that however I want to, and I can choose the path that I'm taking, and I can always choose to do the things that fill me with passion. And if I do that, then, and I kind of also share that with other people, then I can have an impact in my own way. And it doesn't matter how big or small that is, as long as I care about it, And I think the Philippines really showed
As
me
long as
that,
you
and the
make it
project really
count.
showed me that, yeah, as long as I make it count, and as long as I feel passionate about it, and I feel that what I'm doing is right, and it's not hurting anyone, and it's not having a negative impact, and as long as I'm passionate about it, then I'm living, cheesy way to say it, but then I'm living a meaningful life. And I think for me, I mean, I also joined Isaac after my project. I became a member and a team leader there, and that's something that showed me so much about, it taught me a lot about how to have an impact on a small scale, but also on a big scale, And for me, that always means being a responsible leader that cares about others, but that mainly also knows what he or she is doing, what you're doing yourself that fills you with passion, and that you're sharing that and actually doing that and pursuing that because you can, as a young person. Like, I never think that young people.
Exactly. Like, we are so young, we have so much possibilities to do things with ourselves. And I feel like
Exactly.
this project you did, this global volunteer experience you went on, is exactly what helped you to discover exactly this, like, how important it is for you to have passion to do something, um, becoming a little bit more self-aware, figuring out, how do I react in certain situations, but how can I also learn from this in the future, and what are
Exactly.
my reasons and my motivations to do certain things in life.
Yeah, and that it's important to also have the courage to take a step and say, okay, I'm going to do this now. um, I think that's also, I admire everyone that decides, oh, I'm just going to go to a completely different country on my own for 6 weeks. And that's not only with projects in Isaac, but there's so many young people doing so many crazy things just because they're passionate about it, and so many impressive things. And I think that's in the end all that Isaac is about, taking control of your own life and deciding to make yourself vulnerable and to make yourself open to learning more about yourself and about the world and about others. And if every young person would do that, I think our future would look a lot brighter.
Yeah. Well, Gwen, thank you very much for sharing your experience and sharing what you've learned, but also what you went through and how stepping out of your comfort zone helped you to figure a little bit better out, or like decide a little bit better on your future path. Um, I wish you all your best on your current internship in Germany.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
thank you very much for joining.
You're very welcome. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening to the whole episode. I hope you were able to take something out of it. If you're curious what an Isaac experience could look like for you, make sure to contact your local Isaac office or just sign up on isaac.org and let them get in touch with you. As always, if you have any questions or if you want to share some feedback with me or other thoughts, make sure to get in contact with me. As always, you can find all links in the show notes. If you like this podcast, please rate it and share it with your friends and family. That would mean a lot to me. Until then, have a great day and talk to you next episode.